us to make predictions. Now, if you're wondering why we have these floating point numbers like 25.5, these are basically the rules that our model generates based on the patterns that it finds in our data set. As we give our model more data, these rules will change, so they're not always the same. Also, the more columns or more features we have, our decision tree is going to get more complex. Currently, we have only 2 features, age and gender. Now back to our code, let me quickly explain the meaning of all these parameters. We set filled to true, so each box or each node is filled with a color. We set rounded to true, so they have rounded corners. We set label to all, so every node has labels that we can read. We set class names to the unique list of genres, and that's for displaying the class for each node right here. And we set feature names to age and gender, so we can see the rules in our nodes. So that was a short and sweet introduction to machine learning. Now you can use the materials that you learned in this section and apply them to solve a different set of problems. Now here's a question for you. What ideas do you have for machine learning? What kind of problems do you want to solve with machine learning? Use the comment box below and let me know. I love to hear about your ideas. Next, we're going to use Python and a popular framework called Django to build a web application. Are you ready? Let's get started. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create your first website with Python and a very popular framework called Django. So it's spelled with a silent D and it's pronounced Django. It's a web framework for perfectionists with deadlines. So if you're a perfectionist and you want to quickly put together a website that is fast, scalable, and secure, Django is your best friend. And here are the popular websites built with Django, like Instagram, Spotify, YouTube, Washington Post, and so on. Now you might ask, what is a framework and why do we need a framework to build a web application or a website? Well, a framework is essentially a library of reusable modules. These modules provide functionality for common tasks. For example, in case of a web framework like Django, we have modules to work with HTTP requests, URLs, sessions, cookies, and so on. These are the concerns of pretty much every website or web application out there. So all this functionality is already baked into Django. We don't have to code it from scratch. That is why we use a framework like Django. Now, technically a framework is more than a library. So apart from providing these modules, it also defines a structure for our application. It tells us what folders and files we should have in our project. So this provides a consistency amongst various Django projects. So as you move from one company to another and work on different projects, you can easily transition from one project to another because all these applications follow the same structure. Now, with that introduction, let's create our first Django project. So back to PyCharm, close the Hello World project and create a new project. Okay, let's call this new project PyShop. Go ahead. All right, now down the bottom, let's open up a terminal window. In this window, we're going to install Django. So we use pip to install Django, but be sure to add 2 equal signs here, followed by 2.1. With this, we're telling pip that we want to install Django version 2.1. The reason I'm doing this is because in the future, when you're watching this video, chances are there is a newer version of Django out there. I want to make sure that you can easily follow these tutorials, even though what I'm going to show you in these tutorials will most likely work with the latest version of Django. I just want to be on the safe side. So let's go ahead with this. All right, Django is installed. Next, we need to create a Django project. So here, press Ctrl and L. This cleans up our terminal window. You don't have to do it, but it's just easier to see. To create a Django project, we need to execute this command, Django-admin space start project space. We're going to call this project PyShop space period. So when we install Django, Django brings a command line utility called Django-admin. So this is a utility or program that we can execute from the command line or terminal right here. Now, this program takes various arguments. In this case, we want to use this argument, start project. With this, we're going to create a project called PyShop in the current folder. So this period is important here. That means the current folder. If you don't add this period, this utility is going to create an extra folder, and that looks a little bit repetitive. So let's go ahead with this. All right. Now, back to the project panel. if you expand PyShop, you can see that this is our project that we created in PyCharm. And in this folder, we have these files. So init.py, you have seen this before. That means this folder is a package. So we can import various modules from this package into other modules. So here we have this settings module. In this module, we define various settings for our application. You're going to see this later in this course. We also have the URLs module. And with this module, we define what should the user see when they go to, let's say, /about, /contact, /products, /shopping cart. Again, we're going to work with this soon. And finally, we have this module, WSGI, that is short for Web Server Gateway Interface. The purpose of this module is to provide a standard interface between applications built with Django and web servers. This is an advanced topic, so for now, don't worry about it. Now, outside of this folder, we also have this new file in our project, that is manage.py. As the name implies, we use this module to manage this Django project. With this, we can start our web server, we can work with our database. Again, we're going to work with this soon. So let's open up the terminal window one more time. Now type out this command, Python if you're on Windows, or Python 3 if you're on Mac. Because as I told you at the beginning of the course, Mac by default comes with an installation of Python, that is Python 2. But in this course, we're using Python 3. So Python 3 space manage.py space run server. What is going on here? So with Python interpreter, we are running this program manage.py and passing run server as an argument. This manage.py is essentially the same program that we worked with here, Django admin. But we used Django admin before creating a Django project. Now we have a Django project. So in this project, we work with manage.py. This is a module that contains some Python code. So we use this module to manage our Django project. So let's go ahead and run our development web server. As you can see, this started a development web server at this address, http://127.0.0.1. That is the address of your current machine. Now note that after this, we have :8000. Unfortunately, the link below this address has a problem. As you can see, the port is excluded. So if we click this, it opens up our web browser and points it to this address. So we don't have the port number. Let's add :8000 at the end. And here's our first Django website. So we created this Django project. Now this Django project can contain multiple apps. These apps don't represent the entire application. There are small functional areas in our Django project. Here's an example. Imagine you want to build a website or a web application like Amazon. Amazon is a big website. It has so many different functions. Instead of implementing all these functions in a Django project, we divide this project into small functional areas that are focused on one concern. For example, we could have functional areas like product management, order management, customer management. These are completely different functional areas. The functions we have for managing the customers are different from the functions for managing the products. By the same token, when you go to an organization, there are small departments or small offices specializing in different areas. So with this analogy, we divide a Django project into multiple Django apps. Each app is focused on one functional area. So in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to add a new app to manage the products in our imaginary shop. In the future, let's say we want to add a blog to our online shop. We could come back here and create a new app that represents a blog. Now, the beauty of these apps is that we can reuse them across different Django projects because each app is essentially a Python package. Let me show you. So back to our project, let's open up the terminal window. So this is the terminal window we opened earlier where we started our web server. Now up here, we have this plus button for creating a new terminal window. So let's click that. Now let's type out this command, Python on Windows or Python 3 on Mac, manage.py. So we are using the same program, the same module, but this time with a different argument. Start app, and we're going to call that app products. Let's go ahead. All right, now here we have a new folder called products. Let's see what we have in this folder. We have a subfolder called migrations. We'll look at this later. Below that, we have this init.py. So products is a package. We can take this package and reuse it in another Django application, or more specifically, Django project. We can also publish this package to PyPI for other people to reuse in their Django projects. For example, if someone else wants to build an online shop, they can reuse this package for managing the list of products. They don't have to build this functionality from scratch, okay? We have this module, admin, and this is used for defining how the administrative panel of this app will look like. Again, we're going to come back to this later. Below that, we have this module, apps. Unfortunately, the name is a little bit confusing because right now we are inside of one app, that is the products app, and it doesn't make sense to have a module called apps inside of an app. So I don't know why Django creators decided to call this module apps, but basically we use this module to store various configuration settings for this app. So it would be better to call this config. But that aside, let's move on. Next, we have models, and this is where we define classes or new types for modeling the concepts in this app, in this domain. For example, in the domain of products, you probably have concepts like product, category, review, and so on. So we could model these concepts using classes. Again, we're going to come back to this and define a new class here. Next, we have tests.py, and this is where we write automated tests for this app. That's an advanced topic beyond the scope of this course, so don't worry about it. And finally, we have the views module. And this is where we define what should the user see when they navigate to a certain page. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create your first view or view function in Django. What is a view function? A view function is basically a function that gets called by Django when the user navigates to a particular page. For example, here we are on the homepage of our website. When we go to /products, our browser sends an HTTP request to our web server. At this point, Django takes that request, it inspects the URL or the address, it figures out that we want to see the list of products. Then it will call a function, which we call a view function, and the job of this function is to return the response to the browser or to the client. So this function should generate some HTML markup to be returned to the client. Our browser will get this HTML content and display it as a page right here. Now, technically, if you want to be a web developer, you need to know HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I'll try to do my best to hold your hand throughout this course. But in the future, be sure to watch a tutorial about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. On my channel, I have plenty of JavaScript tutorials. I recommend you to start with my JavaScript tutorial for beginners. So back to our project. Inside the products app, let's open up the views module. So here on the top, we have some boilerplate code. From Django.shortcuts, we are importing the render function. So Django is a package, shortcuts is a module, and we are importing the render function. You will see this soon. Below that, we have this comment. We don't need it. Let's create our first view function. So define. We call this function index. It doesn't really matter, but by convention, we use the word index for the main page of an app. So when we go to /products, this will be the main page of our products app.